Well met by moonlight, dear ones. I'm Curiosity, and this is my jamboree, a firelit gathering for explorers of the uncanny, the frightening, and the hard to explain. Tonight, we spin tales of subway encounters, underdressed visitors, and a man in the garden who wasn't there to mow the lawn. So settle in by the crackling fire. Lean in close. Try not to worry too much about those glowing eyes in the distance. And let's begin. Our first story was posted by an anonymous Reddit user. I walk to most places because, being severely visually impaired, I obviously can't drive. I walk at night during summer, which lasts anywhere from April to October if we're lucky. This is probably not the safest idea, but I'm from Texas, so temperatures of 100 degrees aren't unusual. One of my usual destinations was a convenience store a few blocks from my previous house. I set out one night as normal to get myself some Pepsi and a candy stash. Our town isn't very big, and most people drive everywhere. It's very unusual to come across anyone else on my route to the store, but that night a man appeared out of nowhere and started talking like he knew me. He asked me where I was going, and I told him. It wasn't unusual for people to keep watch on me, because I'm a hard-of-hearing blind girl with forearm crutches. This guy had no reason to be there, and was walking way too close beside me. He asked me where I was going, and I told him, just in case I was overreacting. I sped up as much as I could since this part of the route is very dark, with only a subway that had closed for the night. He definitely wasn't there for a $5 footlong. I tried to appear calm, though the alarm bells were ringing and I was shaking to the point I was afraid I'd drop a crutch, which was probably the worst thing that could happen right then, especially after he started asking what I liked in the bedroom, and he could easily have his way with me in the ditch, and no one would know. I felt sick, but continued my walk. The store was only about 20 yards away, and I knew the guy that was on the graveyard shift. I got safely inside, and my friend handed me a bag to carry my stuff in until I was ready to check out. And when I got up to the register, he began speaking loudly enough that I had to turn my hearing aids down because it hurt my ears. "Hey, sweets, did you ever find my 3DS?" I played along, and he opened the half-door thing, and I sat on the stool like it was normal. Creepy dude came over and slammed his Bud Light and a 10 on the counter. After being handed his change, he went outside. He's still out there by the ice machine, my friend told me. After about 20 minutes, the guy still hadn't left. My friend called his manager, and after explaining the situation, she told him to lock up and run me home. He did, and even walked me to my door. I put the key in the door, and we stepped inside. Catherine said to give you this. He handed me a keychain and showed me how to lock and unlock the pepper spray. Call us before you come from now on. He's come in after you for the last 4 weeks. He left, and I made sure every door and window was locked. So, creepy dude, let's never meet again. A lot of the stories I find are by people who are being stalked. The worst part about this was that OP didn't even know. A good thing she had friends to look out for her. Our next story is from r/creepy encounters, posted by poutinelyfe. A little over a year ago, my fiancé and I sold our house in the city and moved an hour away to a rural town. We got an amazing deal on our home, which is rare in today's market, and have been enjoying our new quiet life, oceanside. Our home is just off the highway and sits on about an acre of land. We have a neighbour on either side of us, but the properties are lined by trees and a river, so it's pretty private. There's nobody directly across from us, and beyond our backyard is the ocean. It's also important to note that our driveway is probably 100 foot long, so anyone who comes to the door is either invited or Amazon. When we first moved in, we were getting weird vibes from the neighbour on the right. A few times we saw him watching us through his attic window that looks down onto our back deck. He would also emerge from the bushes and stand beside the gate to our fence that leads to the ocean. Overall, he seemed weird, mostly harmless, but we installed a porch cam on the front door, just in case. My fiancé doesn't like to leave any lights on at night. At all. Not even a front porch light. This never bothered me though. The porch cam we installed has night vision, and the picture is pretty clear at night. So if anyone came up to our door in the middle of the night, we'd be able to see them clearly. The camera has an app that sends notifications to our phones when motion is detected. You can also watch the camera on live view and talk to people outside. One night, we decided to go to bed early because we weren't feeling well. We did the usual, turned off all the lights and headed to bed with our 3 dogs. It was only 9 p.m, but it was winter, so it was pitch black outside. The only light coming from a few solar lights we have on our steps, and the street light at the end of the driveway. We were just dozing off when I heard a noise. I thought I was hearing things, because none of the dogs reacted. Typically, one will hear a noise and start barking, and then the other 2 will join in. I asked my fiancée if she heard anything, and she said no. Then I heard it again, and instantly I knew someone was at our door. Panicked, I told my fiancé to open the porch camera app and check the live view while I flicked the lamp on. She started off by telling me that if someone was there, she would have gotten a notification. When she picked her phone up and turned the screen on, there it was. Motion detected. We exchanged a confused look, and my heart jumped into my throat when she opened the live view. Standing on our porch was a young woman with no trousers on. She was wearing a puffy jacket, and had her shoes slipped on so that the heels of her shoes were crushed under her feet, like she left somewhere in a hurry. She had opened our screen door, and was knocking repeatedly on the entry door, while staring towards the road. Then she shifted her gaze towards our cars, and then tried to peek through the stained glass on our entry door. My fiancé decided that this woman was trafficked, had escaped her captors and needed our help. I didn't say a word. I just sat there, watching this woman knocking on my door. I wasn't getting the same feeling my fiancé was. This didn't look like a woman in distress to me. Her behavior was strange and felt sinister. My fiancé threw on a sweater and was making her way to the bedroom door. I asked her where the hell she was going, and she frantically replied, "She needs our help." I don't know how I convinced her to stay in the bedroom, but I did. It felt weird to call the police because of someone at your door, but because she appeared to have nothing covering her legs, and my gut told me to, I called 911. After I got off the phone with dispatch, we checked the camera again, and she was gone. 20 minutes later, an officer called me. She thanked me profusely for calling, and let me know they had found the woman walking along the highway. I felt like the wind was knocked out of me when she proceeded to tell me that the woman now has pants on and was accompanied by a male. The officer further explained that the pair said they were looking to use a phone. I explained to the officer that we have the whole thing on camera, and there is no male in the picture, which led us both to conclude that he was likely hiding behind our cars or in the bushes beside the steps. I also explained that we don't leave any lights on, so if someone was looking to use a phone, why would they choose the house that's pitch black? The officer agreed that they were likely up to no good, and again thanked me for calling. Nothing like this has happened since. I'll never know the true intent of the pantsless woman and her hidden partner, and my gut tells me that's a good thing. Strange how the 2 people in this story had completely different instincts about the midnight visitor. When someone comes to our door looking for help, which instinct should we trust? This story could have had a very different outcome if the fiancé had gone to the door, or if they'd ignored a genuine request for help. Our last story is from r/Let's Not Meet, shared by Minimum Switch. So this happened to me when I was 11 or 12 years old, over a decade ago, and I still remember it vividly. At the time, I lived in a semi-detached house with my mum, dad, and sibling. It was decent-sized, but the most impressive part was the garden, which essentially had 3 levels. The first level was concrete, the second grass, and the third also grass, but had a trampoline on it. At the very end of the garden was a tree embankment. The area I lived in was somewhat hilly. One morning I woke up to a cracking sound, like a snapped branch, and I was worried since a week earlier a tree from the embankment had fallen onto our neighbour's garden. My bedroom was at the back of the house overlooking the garden, so I opened the curtains to see if another tree had fallen. Instead, I saw a guy hiding in one of the trees in the garden. He was pale, with blonde hair, and wearing all black clothing. He was looking directly at me, presumably because he saw the curtains move. He started smirking, and moved his finger in a "come here" motion. I totally freaked out, and shouted for my mum and dad to come into my room. I was so scared I physically felt like I couldn't move. This was super early in the morning, by the way, around maybe 5 a.m, so it took my dad a good 30 seconds to get in my room, at which point the stranger had hid behind the trees. I remember being really shaken up. I was crying while I told my dad what happened. He went out into the back garden to see if he could spot the guy, but he was gone by that point. A bit of time passed, and I'd started to forget about it. Then, about 3 months after, my mum and I were watching TV together after I'd finished school. The doorbell rang and my mum went to answer the door. I looked out the window of the living room where we were sat, and saw a white van parked outside. It was the same van as my uncle's, so I walked out of the living room and into the hallway to say hi to him. When I got to the porch where my mum was stood, I realised it wasn't my uncle. It was the same guy I'd seen in the garden a few months prior, and it really freaked me out. He noticed me as I walked behind my mum, and gave me the same smirk as when he was in the garden. I wanted to say something to my mum, but I couldn't. I was freaking out inside. Anyway, he just asked my mum if she wanted work done on the drive. She said no, and he left, got back in the van and drove off. He didn't give her a business card or anything. The van didn't have any company branding, and he didn't knock on any of the neighbours' doors. I told my mum that it was the same guy as soon as he went, and she started to feel uneasy about the situation too. A month or so after that I got my first job doing the paper round. I had to deliver over 300 papers with my best friend at the time. It was getting towards winter, and it was dark by 4:30 p.m. We'd been doing the job together for around a month when, one evening after school, it was super dark and rainy. We were halfway through delivering the newspapers, and a van started following us, driving really slow, at the same pace we were walking. We clocked that it was following us after about a minute, and we started to panic as I noticed it was the same guy again. We left the newspaper trolley and started walking quite fast up the hill. We were about a 10-minute walk from my house. I rang my mum, who made me stay on the line while she left the house to meet us. She told us to go to the corner shop that we were about a minute away from. When we made it to the shop, the van sped off really fast. The police were called, who came to my house for a report. We told them everything. That was the last time I ever saw the creepy stranger, but I still remember what he looked like, so vividly. The sun is rising, and the ducks have taken to the lake to feast on our leftover bread. The jamboree is at an end once more. My thanks to everyone who sent in stories or gave me permission to narrate theirs. Remember, I upload new stories on Mondays and Fridays, so be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so you don't miss out. If you have any thoughts about the stories I've narrated, why not leave them in the comments below? And don't forget, if you enjoyed your time by the fireside, to tie twine around the like button so you'll know when you pass it again. If you'd like a story of yours narrated, I have a submission form linked in the description, and I'd love to learn more of your curious experiences and unexplained happenings. I will see you soon, dear ones, and until then, may your nights be dark and your dreams just a little curious.